Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for a deep dive into something kind of mind-bending.
Oh, definitely. Always up for a challenge.
This one's all about entropy. You guys sent in a ton of articles, really wanted to wrap your heads around it. And honestly, I get it. It's way more interesting than just, things getting messy.
Yeah, it definitely gets a bad rap.
We're talking about the sun, the whole direction of time, even what it means to be alive.
Big stuff.
Buckle up, because entropy is like woven into the fabric of everything.
Literally everything. And it's so often oversimplified. People hear entropy and they just think like, "Ugh, my room's a mess. Must be high entropy."
Yeah. Like one article even called it the most misunderstood concept in physics. So how do we actually understand it then?
Okay, so think of it this way. Entropy is about how energy is spread out and how much of that energy can actually do stuff, do work.
Okay, so not just about my sock drawer being chaotic.
Right, exactly. It's more about the potential for change. Like a really good example is your morning coffee.
Ooh, good one.
That steaming cup, that's low entropy. The energy's all concentrated, ready to warm you up.
Yeah.
But as it cools down, that heat spreads out into the room, entropy increases.
So the energy's still there, it's just...
less useful. It's like the total energy's the same, it's just not as concentrated.
So it's like diluting juice. You add more water, you still have juice, but it's weaker.
Perfect analogy. And here's the big thing.
Right.
In a closed system, entropy always goes up. Always.
So, like, no escaping it. Even if I clean my room, the universe is still getting more entropic.
Exactly. You decreasing entropy in your room actually increases it overall. You had to expend energy to clean, right?
True. So it's like a cosmic balance sheet or something.
Exactly. Which, it's kind of profound when you think about it.
Makes you feel pretty small, knowing you're part of this huge universal trend. And speaking of cosmic, one article talked about the sun being a low-entropy superhero.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Sounds like we owe it a thank you.
For sure. It's constantly showering the Earth with all this low-entropy energy. That high-temperature, concentrated sunlight.
It's like I'm picturing a giant magnifying glass focusing all that energy onto a tiny point.
Exactly. That's concentrated power right there.
But what happens then? The Earth doesn't just absorb it all, does it?
Nope, it sends it back out as higher entropy infrared radiation. It's like spreading that concentrated energy back out.
So we're bathed in this low-entropy light, use it, and then release it in a more spread-out form.
Exactly. And that difference between the sun's low entropy and what the Earth sends back, that gradient, it's what drives almost everything on the planet.
Really?
Weather, ocean currents, even life itself, all powered by that entropy flow.
Wow. It really is interconnected then, huh? Not just watching it, but we're like part of this cosmic dance.
Absolutely. And it brings up some really interesting questions about time, too. Like, what if this constant increase in entropy is why we experience time moving forward?
Whoa, okay. One article mentioned Arthur Eddington. He had this idea of the arrow of time, right?
Yeah, he was one of the first to really connect entropy and time. But it's not quite that simple.
Oh.
You can have local decreases in entropy, like your fridge keeps things cold, but time doesn't reverse in there.
Okay, that's a relief. My leftovers wouldn't appreciate a time warp. So how does this whole arrow of time thing work with entropy?
Well, think about the very early universe. Incredibly low entropy, everything packed super tight.
Right.
As the universe expands, energy spreads out, entropy increases. And that direction, from low to high entropy, that could be what gives us that feeling of time moving forward.
So it's like the universe is on this one-way street of entropy, and we're just cruising along with it. That's pretty mind-blowing. I think I need a minute to process all this.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? But that's what makes it so fascinating. It touches on the biggest questions out there.
Totally. And speaking of big questions, one article talked about the link between entropy and life. It's kind of counterintuitive, right? Life is all about order, complexity, but entropy is always increasing.
Right. It's a great point. Living things are constantly battling entropy just to maintain their structure, their organization. Think about cells, tiny factories with all these intricate little machines working together.
Yeah.
And then ecosystems, food webs, whole biomes, these complex systems pushing back against entropy.
So while the universe is heading towards this big entropy max out, life is like this little pocket of resistance, trying to stay organized.
Exactly. Living things are master entropy fighters. They need a constant supply of energy to keep up that low entropy state. It's like constantly tidying your room, but on a cellular level.
Huh. That analogy works. Makes you appreciate all the work your body's doing just to stay alive every second. The articles mention photosynthesis, metabolism, that kind of stuff. Are those examples of this entropy battle?
Absolutely. Every biological process, building proteins, replicating DNA, it's all a dance with entropy. And because of the second law of thermodynamics, nothing's ever perfectly efficient.
So some energy is always lost, increasing entropy around us.
Exactly. So even though life seems to defy entropy, it's still bound by its rules, this delicate balancing act.
It makes me think about all the environmental problems we're facing. One article mentioned climate change, resource depletion. Does entropy play a role there too?
Oh, absolutely. Our lifestyle, especially relying on fossil fuels, is basically speeding up entropy increase on a global scale.
So it's not just the emissions, it's about how we're transforming energy.
Yeah, like we're disrupting the natural flow of things. Burning fossil fuels releases all that energy in a much less organized way, increasing entropy.
And what about resource depletion? Where does that fit in?
Same idea. Mining, for example. You're taking concentrated minerals and scattering them, making them less available for anything useful.
So it's all about increasing entropy, decreasing usable energy and resources.
Exactly. It's like we're pushing the planet towards that maximum entropy state faster than we should. It makes you realize, we need to find sustainable ways to live.
Yeah, it really puts things into perspective. Okay, there was one more thing in the articles that I didn't quite grasp. Something about entropy and information. It sounded pretty abstract.
Oh, it's a fascinating area. Think of information as a way to reduce uncertainty. The more information you have about something, the lower its entropy.
So like me learning about entropy right now is actually decreasing entropy in my brain.
Exactly. It's pretty meta. And this connection has huge implications, especially in things like evolutionary biology.
Oh, right. One article, dead focus on information and evolution. But how can evolution, which is all about increasing complexity, happen in a universe where entropy is always going up?
It seems like a paradox, right? But when you factor in information, it starts to make more sense. Organisms evolve by accumulating genetic information and passing it on.
And that information lets them build those complex low-entropy structures.
Right. And pass those traits to their offspring.
So life isn't just fighting entropy. It's using information as a weapon. Like creating order out of chaos. Building complexity even as entropy increases.
That's a great way to put it. And this whole interplay between entropy, information, and evolution, it's still a huge area of research. There's so much more to discover.
Yeah, my brain is definitely feeling full after all that. From the sun's energy to the arrow of time to this whole information thing. My understanding of entropy is definitely leveled up today.
Okay, so we've really gone deep on this whole entropy thing today. From the entire universe to tiny cells, it's everywhere, shaking everything.
It really is fundamental, and it makes you think about things in a whole new way, like connections you wouldn't have seen before.
Totally. Before we finish up, let's recap. What are the biggest things our listeners should remember about entropy?
Okay, so first, entropy isn't just about things being disordered. It's about energy spreading out and becoming less useful.
Right, like that coffee example.
Mm-hmm.
The heat's still there, it's just not as concentrated. Exactly. And the second law of thermodynamics, that tells us entropy is always increasing over time, at least in a closed system.
And that has big implications, right, for the fate of the universe, even how we live.
For sure. We also learned about how important the sun is. It's our source of low entropy energy, creating that gradient that drives life on Earth.
And that leads to another key point. Life is constantly fighting entropy. Keeping itself organized takes energy all the time.
Right. Living things are super complex, so they need that constant input of energy to stay in that low entropy state.
But it's not just about resisting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Life is actually using information as a tool in this fight. Evolving, adapting to overcome entropy.
Right, totally. That connection between entropy and information is super interesting. It's like life, with its ability to store and use information, is actually pushing back against the overall increase of entropy.
So entropy might seem like this abstract idea, but really matters for our lives and the planet.
Absolutely. Understanding entropy can help us make better choices, more sustainable ones. If we get how our actions affect the entropy of the planet, we can work towards minimizing that increase and preserving the resources we need.
It's like entropy gives us this new way of seeing things, the connections, the flow of energy, how delicate that balance is.
It does. And it also shows how important knowledge is. The more we learn about these laws of the universe, the better decisions we can make.
Well said. We've covered so much today. The sun, time, how life and information play into all of this. My brain is definitely full.
Mine too. And the best part is, it doesn't stop here. Every cup of coffee, every action, every thought, It's all connected to entropy.
That's a great thought to leave our listeners with. Entropy is all around us, always shaping our world. And the more we understand it, the more we can appreciate how complex life and the universe really are. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into entropy, everyone. Keep those minds curious. And until next time, remember, even though entropy is increasing, so can our understanding of it all.